I really loved the Sony FX30 when it was first announced back a couple of weeks ago. It's a stunning camera, $1,800, and it's got the same capabilities as the Sony FX3. Or does it? Has Sony lied to us, or is there a major bug in this camera that's preventing it from delivering on one of its core capabilities? Details coming up, but first, I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Josh Staten claims that the Sony FX30 doesn't have dual base ISO. For those of you unfamiliar with the term dual base ISO, what it means is at two separate ISO levels, for example, ISO 800 and ISO 2500, the camera has the same noise and dynamic range levels. And this is very helpful if you're shooting in low light situations. It reduces the amount of noise that you get in your camera. When Sony announced the FX30, they announced that it had a dual base ISO at ISO 800 and then again at ISO 2500. So at 2500, you should have the same noise levels as at 800. Except as Josh Staten demonstrates on his YouTube channel, comparing the Sony FX30 to the Canon EOS R7, you can see that the noise level drops off from an ISO of 800 all the way past ISO 2500 without any improvement at 2500 as expected. And remember, in the case of the Sony FX30, it should have the exact same noise level and dynamic range at 2500 as it does at ISO 800. And there's also a color shift from green to yellow that gets worse as you move throughout the ISO range. I know what you're thinking, and I was thinking the same thing. This is probably a pre-production unit, and when my friend Stop the FOMO reached out to me and told me about this, I said, yeah, but this is probably pre-production. I'm not going to go out there. If this is an issue with pre-production, I'm going to leave it alone because it's probably going to be fixed in a firmware update. But you know what? This is a production unit. This isn't a pre-production camera, so the issue is there. What's significant is that Josh on his channel shows that there's no dual base ISO present or in effect operating on the Sony FX30. And please do me a favor. Josh has done some incredible work uncovering this, and we're probably going to hear more about this over the next coming days and weeks. Please go ahead and look at Josh's video on his channel, Josh Staten. I've got a link in the description down below. He goes into more detail covering the Sony FX30 and this issue, but also comparing it to the Canon EOS R7. And what he does is he looks at the ISO range between these two cameras, and in some cases, the Sony FX30 has a better ISO response, but in other parts of the ISO range, so does the R7. And then when you get really past, I think it's like 12,500 or higher, well, then they're both producing pretty noisy video. So a big thanks to Josh Staten for letting me use this video clip, but please go to his channel, subscribe, like, and watch, because he goes into a lot more detail than I'm doing here. So is Sony purposefully lying to their customers? I really don't think so. I don't think Sony's going to go out there and advertise the FX30 has dual base ISO, state the ISO level at 800, and then again at 2500, and then not deliver. What I suspect here is that there's some sort of major bug in the firmware that's not allowing the camera to deliver on its dual base ISO at 2500. And I think that's likely going to be fixed or addressed in the next coming weeks. So why am I putting out this video? Why am I poo-pooing on the FX30? Why don't I just let sleeping dogs lie? This is probably going to be fixed in a firmware update. And I thought the same thing myself. I didn't want to come poo-pooing on a camera that I thought and still think today that at $1,800 with the same capabilities as a Sony a7S III and the FX3, it's a really good camera. But I know that if I was looking at buying this camera and knowing that it has a dual base ISO, because if you're shooting video, dual base ISO is one of those big capabilities that you're looking forward to. It's huge. I wish the Canon EOS R5 had dual base ISO. Most of the times I'm shooting around ISO 800 because, well, that's really the highest you want to go when you're shooting with Canon Log 3 and of course with the cinema gamut. To buy a camera or to consider buying a camera that has dual base ISO but in effect doesn't, I at least want you to be aware of this. So if you've pre-ordered the camera, if you're looking at buying this camera, maybe what you want to do is sort of just sit back and wait a week or two and find out if this is something that's going to be fixed in a firmware update, if it was a mistake made by the marketing department, which I really, really doubt. I do suspect that this is going to be fixed in a firmware update, but I just don't know, and you probably don't know either. But because I said so many good things about the Sony FX30, I talked about all its benefits and how it's essentially an APS-C version of the FX3 or the a7S III for what amounts to be less than half the price. I thought it's a terrific bargain. I feel it's only fair to not just put a video out there and then not correct myself later when I found out that something isn't necessarily the truth. And in this case, it's not that I've made a mistake. is that we're finding out, as Josh Satin has found out, that dual base ISO is not functioning and that we essentially don't have dual base ISO with the current firmware update. So stay tuned on this one. We'll find out more very soon to find out if this is going to be fixed in a firmware update, what the source of the issue is. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors, specifically regarding the Sony FX30 and dual base ISO, is it there or isn't, or is it not? Then go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. And by choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified so you can stay up to date on the latest news and rumors. And that saves you from scrubbing all the Twitter feeds, RSS feeds, your favorite websites, newspaper sites, or YouTube channels. I cover all the major camera brands and news. So if you're just looking for one place to get your daily dose of camera news, well, this is the place to be. So subscribe and choose subscribe and please choose all notifications. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.